So again, we are so excited to have everybody here today to join us for the webinar to kick off the hurricane season. I am Mia Sanati. I am a program manager here at I-DIEM, responsible for the hurricane program. And we are going to be joined today by some very special guests. And I will go ahead and I will share my screen with y'all so that we can go ahead and jump right into this. Okay, so just briefly, I kind of want to go over the agenda for this webinar. We'll start out obviously with the welcome and going over this agenda right here. Then we're going to hear from some of our special guests about women in emergency management. Then we will hand things over to our sponsor, Farmers Insurance, to say a few brief words. We'll go over some background information about the Institute for Diversity and Inclusion in Emergency Management, as well as some background information about the hurricane program. We'll explain some of the changes and exciting things that are coming for this year's program, what we expect out of potential hosts, what the next steps would be, and then we'll have time at the end for some question and answers. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Ms. Kelly Bentz, who is going to talk briefly about some of the highlights of her career, why it's so important to have women involved in emergency management, and why she's so excited about the hurricane program this year. So Kelly, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Mia, and thank you all for being here today. Feel really honored. As Mia mentioned, I've obviously been a woman in emergency management, and I really look at that as a much broader term. And so a few years ago, when Chauncia asked me to serve on I-DIEM's advisory board, I was very excited because I'm very passionate about this topic. I've spent about 20 years in the field. About half of that was in nonprofit space and half in private sector. And then currently I am affiliate faculty for a Harvard program called the National Preparedness Leadership Initiative, along with the senior advisor for the future of that program, which is a program I went through about 11 years ago. And I raised that as well because even going through a program like that on the academic side, it was very unique to be a woman going through that program 11 years ago, and also serving in various capacities. And so throughout my career, I've certainly seen, I've been the only woman in the room. I've seen where women are more maybe throttled on the nonprofit side. Certainly in the government space, it's definitely lacking, and certainly was, I would say, over 20 years, definitely seen a shift. But that said, I-DIEM and the programs like this are so necessary. Thankfully, I've had also the privilege to really travel the world in my career. And what that means is it's given me a pretty unique vantage point about how women and girls are most profoundly impacted by disasters. And I say that because while the majority, I think, of the participants or audience members today might be hosting this program in the United States, I do believe the impacts of the things that we do in the US do have influence globally. And as many of us know, both in climate change, but also in all phases of disaster, women and girls are disproportionately impacted. And when we talk about how do we really identify solutions for communities before, during, and after a crisis, it's bring in the survivors that are impacted. And so oftentimes that is women have been lacking in that room, in addition to many others that are underrepresented. And so this program, super excited to have as part of I-DIEM. And I know we've done it in quite a few cities so far, but the potential, I wouldn't have even known that this was certainly like 30 years ago when I was in high school, maybe I would have never known it was a possibility to be in the crisis space. I didn't even know what, if you told me that, I wouldn't have even known what that meant. And so the fact that a program like this exists is really, really incredible. And I think, you know, as we've seen over the years, certainly academic institutions have started to build out that as a certification or a degree program. But prior to, you know, I would even say 10 years ago, it was almost foreign to talk to people and say you had a degree in this space. So I would just say I feel you know, very grateful to be a part of this mission. And I think anyone that's willing and able to host this program, you're only going to benefit not just your own institution or your own organization and agency, but really communities. And the studies and research have shown the more we involve women in this solution, the more it impacts positively all communities. So really bringing women to the forefront, just I think many of us know some of those impacts that we see. So in any disaster, often what surfaces are those pre-existing issues. And while we don't necessarily like to talk about certain things, it can be everything ranging from domestic violence to sexual violence, to pregnant women that don't have the right facilities in a disaster to be able to birth their child. There's so many impacts. And obviously on the climate change element inside of this, it's even far greater. So the fact that we're thinking about this, that we're really focused on bringing more women into the industry and into the space is really exciting. And I just hope that we see more women get into this field. And so I would just say for anyone that's looking at hosting this program, it really will be a way to impact your agency and the communities around you in such a positive way. It's proven that when you bring women into the planning phases, we do get better results. And so really thank you for considering being a host if you haven't already committed. And I think this program will just continue to show yields and dividends for communities and generations to come. Back to you, Mia.
There was my mouse. Sorry, I lost my mouse. I do apologize again for that little delay. I actually, in the spirit of troubleshooting all technology, I also have Ms. Kay Goss here on the phone. Uh, because technology. So she's also going to say a few words just about kind of some career highlights, why she thinks that there need to be more women in emergency management, as well as why she is so excited about I-DIEM's HERricane program this year.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity and want to congratulate everyone who's going to be participating in this program, because I think it's one of the best programs that exists and is the best program for emergency management for women for sure. And I accidentally got into emergency management 40 years ago, so I've had a lot of experience. And one of the first experiences I had was putting together a program for the state. My state is Arkansas, and so that was very exciting. And then I went on from there to be appointed by the president as the highest ranked woman at FEMA until Diana Criswell was selected the year before last. So big advocate of women in emergency management. And when I first went to FEMA, there weren't many women in high civil service positions, much less presidential appointments. And I used to have a monthly meeting with them. And one of the reasons that I'm so enthusiastic about this program is that it does emphasize the importance of inclusion and diversity in emergency management. And that's kind of a new concept to the profession. When I first got in, I was the only woman at most conferences, and I was the only woman in my state, and very few were at FEMA. But it's changing, and one of the reasons that I'm an advocate is I think that it teaches service and it teaches leadership and it builds self-confidence and decision making. Absolutely makes you comfortable with your decisions that you will make, and it's been pointed out in some situations that we face as emergency managers are life and death situations, and it's just an opportunity for your own intellectual growth, your own self-confidence to increase, and it's kind of magical that way. At least I found it to be. I never thought about it. I'd never heard about it. And then suddenly a governor appointed me in charge of his relationship with firefighters and emergency managers. And along with a lot of other jobs like cities and counties and the congressional delegation and White House and so on. And so I couldn't be more enthusiastic, and I congratulate those of you who are going to be participating in it, and most of all for I-DIEM and the cities for being sponsors of it.
Thank you so much for talking with us today and for all that you do for both I-DIEM and HERricane and all that you've contributed to the field. We really appreciate your service.
Thank you so much. I just received my CEM for the 6th time.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. I have to brag a little bit.
Thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And now I'm going to hand things over to our sponsors at Farmers. On behalf of Farmers Insurance, we are joined today by Corporate Citizenship Program Manager, Shay Pease.
Thank you all so much for joining. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to follow Kelly and Kay after those incredible testimonials. But first, I want to just say thank you again to I-DIEM for this incredible program. Farmers has been so fortunate to be part of HERricane for the last several years. And I will say, as an organization with over 20,000 employees and 13,000 agents, HERricane is really the program that has resonated more strongly with our enterprise than any other program that we've been part of. So we are incredibly fortunate and grateful for the opportunity to work with I-DIEM. And we really hope that everyone who is on this call will take advantage to try to bring HERricane to your community. It has such an incredible impact. But I'd like to explain a little bit about why an insurance company is interested in HERricane and in this impactful work with I-DIEM. And it really all comes back to our purpose, which is to deliver peace of mind. And of course, that goes for our policyholders and our customers, but it also goes for all of the communities where we have any sort of impact. And we do that with a focus on disaster resilience and economic empowerment. We also know that emergency management is really at the core of anticipating and responding to unforeseen events, and is really the key behind disaster resilience, making sure that communities are prepared and that they can mitigate disaster, respond more quickly to it whenever it does happen. But we know that when everyone has an opportunity to come to the table, when we have diverse perspectives, that's what really allows communities to respond. You know, Kelly and Kay sort of touched on it a little bit, how women are disproportionately impacted by disaster. So the fact that they are often underrepresented in the fields of emergency management is why HERricane is so important. And I'd like to also highlight that HERricane catches those young women when they're at that pivotal stage where they're trying to figure out what career they're going to enter, what are they going to do with their life, how is their future going to shape. So HERricane reaches them at a time when they're making those huge decisions. And that's really, I think the magic behind all of this. So we're really grateful for HERricane for involving young women, for getting them involved in emergency management. But in addition to introducing them to the field of emergency management, all participants will walk away with, again, that sense of self-confidence, with new connections. They'll also walk away with career readiness skills, with development skills. They will hear from not only emergency management professionals, but insurance professionals, community leaders. So they will have so many more connections, and they will feel so much more empowered, not just to move forward in the fields of emergency management, but with their future as a whole. And that's so crucial, again, at this stage for young women. So I'll end just by saying, again, thank you so much to I-DIEM. Thank you to everyone who is here on this call and is considering moving forward with HERricane. We have, again, worked with I-DIEM for several years, and each year I can promise you the results from participants, the feedback, the communities, it is always more and more positive. So we are so grateful to be part of this journey, and we hope that you consider bringing this to your own community. And then I think I'm handing it over to Chauncia.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you, Shay. Thank you so much. And I'm excited. I feel magical. I feel empowered. I like those words a lot. I'm enjoying just listening to Kelly, to Kay, and to Shay. You guys, I don't even know how to explain it. I'm so inspired. Once again, Chauncey Willis, co-founder and CEO for the Institute for Diversity and Inclusion in Emergency Management. And, my mom always says she doesn't have favorites. We know she's not telling the truth. Of course, I'm her favorite. But HERricane, out of all of our programs, this is one of my favorites. And it's a program that I believe is going to not only, as Kelly said, go into a global posture, but I actually think it's going to grow wings and take over the entire universe. I really do. I love it. Okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about I-DIEM. I-DIEM, we are a nonprofit. We've been around since 2019. And essentially, our purpose is to do the most for everyone that we can actually make contact with. We're trying to save lives. I-DIEM is a dynamic, amazing, now global organization. And it's intended to close the gap in equity. And for those of you who have been involved in emergency management for years or even a short amount of time, we still don't make up the majority. The field is actually over 70% male in leadership. And that's something to think about, because at a certain point, we have to say, what can we do to balance the approach? And that's in every area. How can we expose more women to the field of emergency management so they can make a great career of it? I've been in this field for over 23 years now. And I've enjoyed just about every moment. It's an opportunity to have impact. It's an opportunity to really bring all of your skills, your gifts, your talents to the table and to use them. So right now, I'm going to give you a very brief history of how I-DIEM acquired the HERricane program. And I think it's a rather unique background. This program was not created by I-DIEM. It was created by I want to say it's close to Anne Arundel, but it's up north in Virginia. And they created the program. They did amazing things all over the country with the HERricane program. One day, we received a call, though. They said, we know that I-DIEM can take it further. And more than that, we know that you will make it more diverse. And so that really was the selling point for me, the desire to make the program more inclusive, more diverse, to not center it in young women who are coming from very affluent backgrounds. The reality is that as an emergency manager, we want everyone to have a voice, to have a platform, to contribute, everyone. So even if you are not coming from a background that is well represented in emergency management, we still welcome everyone to the table to contribute and to do some amazing things. I love these pictures of the young girls. They're smiling, they're having fun. To me, that represents the HERricane program. Learning while you're enjoying the moment, enjoying the location. And we're going to hear a little bit more about what these young ladies can expect. Many will come from all different kinds of backgrounds. And I love that. And I'm hoping that Kelly, Kay, and Shay, that you'll be able to join us at some of these HERricane camps. And so the young ladies can actually meet you in person and ask questions and understand the realities of it. Because at the end of the day, while it seems like, helicopter rides and all these things are fun and glamorous and certainly more fun than the average job, at the end of the day, there's still a lot of responsibility that falls on women. Indeed, recovery is centered in many cases around women when there's a disaster as the nucleus. And so there have been so many studies and research done around that. So women carry a tremendous responsibility. And so HERricane is one of those programs where we're going to talk more about that, talk about how to balance things, talk about self-care, even in the face of disaster, even in the face of working hard to build resilience. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mia. I know we're going to have some great questions at the end. And if you have some questions now, go ahead and drop them in the chat. All right, so take care and thank you so much.
Thank you, Chauncia. And as always, thank you for your amazing perspectives. And, you know, stealing some of the statistics that I was about to ramble off as I introduced things. But I'll go ahead and tell you guys a little bit more about kind of what the I-DIEM HERricane program entails for the participants and also for the hosts. So starting off, you know, as Chauncia mentioned, and as all of us probably could mention in our sleep, women only make up about 30% of emergency management directors. However, women are about 14 times more likely to die in a disaster situation. In fact, in some situations, it's not unheard of for 70 to 90% of casualties to be women and children. So we could, you know, debate all day what those underlying social reasons are, but I think it's clear that the status quo is not serving us. And to that end, we need to have more women in the field of emergency management to protect women, children, and other marginalized communities. So HERricane provides a week-long day camp for young women ages 16 to 22. The other thing that we want to make sure that they're getting out of this is that even awareness that this exists as a career option. I myself was in graduate school before I met somebody who was majoring in emergency management, to which I responded, what does that mean? Because I had no idea. It's a hidden career. I had never seen an emergency manager. I was lucky enough to have gotten to that point in my life that I had never really gone through a huge natural disaster and man-made disaster where I needed help of some kind and coordination. I had no idea that it even existed. And I'm sure there are tons of other young ladies out there who are in the same boat. But the field of emergency management is actually growing as a career, as I'm sure many of you well know. It's predicted to grow exponentially over the next couple of years. So we're also setting them up for a career option that is growing and that there will be jobs in. So at this point, you might be thinking, okay, I see the need, but how do we accomplish these goals? And there isn't necessarily one simple answer, but rather a variety of different things that I-DIEM HERricane participants are exposed to, including our educational curriculum, tours and field trips, the participation in activities and exercises, the almost meticulous selection of guest speakers to make sure that they are going to be the people who are most impactful for these young ladies to see, and networking opportunities. So at I-DIEM, we truly, truly believe in learning from our past experiences. We are constantly talking about how things went, what could have gone better, and obviously, you know, what we did well too. And so this year we're implementing a few changes to our program to acknowledge some of the things that, you know, we think that could be better and better and better year after year after year. So the first thing that we have changed up a little bit, for those of you who have joined us in the past, you might notice there are a few small changes to the application. The big change that we've added this year is allowing you to select more than 1 week that you might be interested in participating, what we have found is that we can't really have 2 camps running the same week. It does not allow enough attention to each camp. It's not fair to the campers, it's not fair to the hosts, and it's too much for us, quite frankly. So we don't want to have camps running concurrently. Therefore, we're allowing you to add optional second and third choice weeks in case the week that you might want to run the camp has already kind of been taken by someone else, and we'll deal with that as that comes up. We're also really, really excited to announce some new curriculum for this year. This will focus on a few key areas that we will work with each host to incorporate so that they can have the field trips, the tours, the guest speakers, and the activities and exercises and other opportunities. I know some of those things might be time sensitive, so we want to work with you to have a schedule that facilitates the curriculum that makes sense to go with the activities that are planned for that particular day and so forth. The new curriculum will also, you guys will receive it ahead of camps if you're selected as well. And you will have the ability to localize some of the content. So, you know, if you're in the Northeast, there might be more a place where you can put in a story about a winter storm situation that might not be relevant, you know, here in Florida, for example. And the curriculum is designed to kind of work around the other activities and fit in a way that makes it, you know, if you can only go tour the EOC on Tuesday at 2 o'clock, we want to make sure that that curriculum works around that availability rather than trying to fit the EOC tour into the existing curriculum. So the themes that we're exploring this year include understanding emergency management, obviously, diversity, equity, and inclusion, climate change and resilience, and also communication and leadership. We will work with each of our hosts again to build out a schedule that includes those and also takes into consideration the scheduling. Finally, we are very excited, looking forward to hosting I-DIEM HERricane at new locations. In the past, we have hosted the camp in Los Angeles, New York, Philadelphia, Anne Arundel County, Maryland, the state of North Carolina, and Knoxville, Tennessee. And we are excited both about the interest that we have received from kind of our alumni camps to return, as well as all of these new exciting places and locales, jurisdictions, organizations that are going to introduce more young women into the field of emergency management. So kind of what do we expect from our hosts? And these are just kind of some guidelines, and as we go forward, we can talk more about kind of what the other expectations might be of a host site. But first, we want to make sure that you have a designated space to host the young women that obviously is safe and allows that to be used for instruction and activities. Our first priority is the learning of the campers, right? The younger participants, the young women. And we also want to make sure that their camp isn't necessarily interfering with the flow of work in your area, because that is also a concern. That being said, we also want to make sure that we are able to optimize the special guest speakers and the tours that these young ladies receive. This might involve, you know, talking to different stakeholders, communicating with different speakers and inviting them to attend, and then following up with them, making sure that everything that they need is available and that they're able to join as scheduled. And to help the young ladies get the most out of their week. Finally, you should also be aware that there are some documentation and reporting requirements. We are asking for daily photo and video updates for things that we can personally post on social media that are different than possibly what your organization posts on social media for the day, because we want to be able to share, not necessarily replicate. We are asking for an after action report at the conclusion of the camp, full delivery of any photos and videos that you have from the camp, And also we're asking you to post on your own social media, right? So from the recruitment process of trying to get young women registered for the camp, throughout the camp, and even following up the camp. And we will work with you to provide branding materials to facilitate those posts. Like, we're not just asking you to wing it. We have specific guidelines for those, and we are happy to work with you in building those out. So if you're interested in hosting, what are the next steps? There are 3 things that we'll need from you. The first is a completed application. The application form can be found on our website, which is you went there to register for this webinar, but it is www.idiem.org/HERricane. And you will find the link to the application form there. We also would like a letter of support from the leadership at your agency, organization, or jurisdiction, just to make sure that there is support for the program there in place. And finally, you'll schedule a one-on-one consultation with me. Again, the link to that booking page can be found on our website. And I will also send out an email to all of the webinar registrants after the fact with all of these links enclosed.